저한테 할까요? 물어봐. 왜 뭐라고 얘기하지? 운동 느낌.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so my name is Olivia, and if our practice usually ends at 9 and we get home by like 9:30, and let's say we're gonna go to bed at like 11, then like you're really hungry after practice, would like a heavy meal be like okay, or would you want to like, is there like a limit that you shouldn't eat before bedtime?
That's a really great question. I'm so glad you asked that because our practices do tend to run late. And the answer is no. That's a nutrition myth that you shouldn't eat past a certain time or eat a heavy meal. The only reason you shouldn't eat a heavy meal is if it upsets or interrupts your sleep. So if you notice that you're having an upset stomach in the middle of the night, or you're waking up because your body is just not feeling right, then maybe have something lighter. But our bodies are pretty cool and they keep digesting. Your metabolism stays up. It doesn't slow down at night. You're still able to digest throughout the middle of the night. And so it's fine to have a carb, fat, and protein meal, even if it's at, 9:30, 10 p.m. and you go to bed at 11. Yeah, it's a good question. Really good question. Yeah. Other questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
So whenever I exercise, I always get indigestion and I can never eat before, after, or like practice, because I can't go to sleep after practice, because if I do eat, I can't sleep because my stomach hurts, and if I eat before practice, I feel like I'm gonna throw up during practice.
Yeah.
And I do so that I don't throw up in the middle of practice.
Good question. So we definitely don't want you to throw up in the middle of practice. So I kind of mentioned this, but I'll expand on it a little bit more about the gut training. But first and foremost, I would recommend liquid fuel for you. Okay, so pre-practice, focusing on something liquid like a smoothie, making sure that you're having sports drinks during practice, since you can't optimize your meals before you go to practice. But when you get out of season and you're back into preseason, start with some gut training. And what that looks like is starting several hours before practice, have a small meal and see how you feel. And then the next time, do that for about a week. The next week, bring it a little closer to practice and make it a little bit bigger. Add a little bit more to your meal and do that for about a week. See how you feel. And keep going until you're able to have, again, your meals only have to be 3 to 4 hours before practice, but see if you can build up your snacks to about an hour and a half before practice so you have energy. My main concern with that would be energy during practice. I don't want you to get tired in the middle of practice because you're not able to eat enough. When it comes to sleeping, you said it upsets your stomach, right? Yeah, because you're finishing practice and then you're going to bed pretty soon right after. Yeah. Okay. So I would stick with Christine, right? Your name's Christine. Okay. I want to make sure I'm looking at the right person. So I would make sure that post-practice, you have something almost right away, but again, liquid is going to be your best friend. So smoothies or chocolate milk. And the reason is your body doesn't have to do as much digesting, which is often what keeps us our upset stomach or keeps us up at night, but you're still going to get enough calories and energy and protein to refuel your muscles to make sure you're getting the benefit out of practice. So gut training, and if you have questions about that, you can either let Lorraine know or let me know about the gut training, because that's going to be your best friend to make sure you can work up to having a proper snack before you go to practice. And then post-practice for your recovery, again, focusing on liquid energy, liquid fuel, so it doesn't upset your stomach when you go to sleep. Because we didn't talk about sleep tonight, that's outside of the realm of nutrition, but sleep is just as important for recovery. If you're not getting enough sleep, you're definitely not going to be maximizing the benefit from your practices. So we don't want to upset your stomach or upset your sleep at all. Good question. Other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about juicing earlier, and my mom loves juicing for some reason. Okay, so what could you wait.
I'm trying to find you. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Could you use like juicing like as a way as like liquid? What is it called? Sorry.
Yes, liquid fuel.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you brought that up. So juicing has its place. It shouldn't be your entire fueling plan, if that makes sense. So the beautiful thing about juicing is it does remove the fiber, which can cause your stomach to be upset, but you're still going to get the benefit of the carbs from the fruit. And you'll get some vitamins and minerals in there too, which is an extra bonus. So if you have some juicing before your practice would be a great opportunity to utilize liquid fuel. Absolutely. I love that. That's a great way to incorporate that. Really awesome.
Okay. Sorry, I was gonna say Hayden had a question, right?
Yes, I do. Okay, so zones, when we do zones, is a pretty like heavy back-to-back meet. Like we get back to the hotel at like 8. We're up at like 6 the next morning.
Yeah.
Is it okay to eat like a pretty heavy like fiber meal, like with like protein and stuff, the night like you finish zones day 1, you're going into day 2? Is that okay to eat kind of like a heavy meal like later that night? Because your body should like digest it throughout the night, but I don't know.
Yep. No, you're right. Exactly. That is I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions, is that our body doesn't keep digesting. It does. It just decreases the speed. And so you might wake up feeling a little bit more like, oh, maybe there's something sitting on my stomach. But your body will still digest. That would be a great opportunity to have protein, have fiber, maximize your fat intake there. And then the next morning, focus on carbs. Yeah, that was great. You nailed it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, say like if it were between like fried chicken or like some unhealthy food or like a healthy bar, which one would like be better?
Well, that is a complicated question because I need to know a little bit more.
Sorry. If like sorry.
What are the circumstances we're talking about? Is this pre-practice, post-practice, or just in general?
Yes, like pre-practice. So, cause like obviously the chicken would be more filling and like last longer, but the bar would be more healthy.
So we're kind of we're not even comparing apples and oranges here. We're comparing like apples and vegetables. It's totally different ballgame with the fried chicken and the bar, because the fried chicken is going to be protein. Yes, it's also going to be probably some carbs because it's breaded. But the bar is going to be mostly just carbs. The other thing is you're kind of talking more about like whole food with the chicken and a little bit more processed food with the bar. So the answer is, and if you ever talk to a dietitian, chances are this will be their answer for a lot of things, it depends. It depends on what your stomach can handle. So if you don't have a problem digesting food going into practice and you want to have the chicken, I would recommend optimizing the meal with maybe some rice on the side or a baked potato or something like that. You don't want to have just fried chicken because it's not going to give you enough carbs going into practice. The other thing is, what else are you having throughout the day? Because if we're just having fried chicken, then we got to talk. But if you're having balanced meals throughout the day, fried chicken at one point is going to be okay. But is it going to be what's best going into your practice? How's it going to make you feel? I feel like fried chicken would make me feel really sluggish and kind of sit heavy. So it depends. I know that doesn't directly answer your question, but hopefully it gives you some food for thought when it comes to making your food choices. That's one of my biggest things too, is how's it going to make you feel? Because my best pre-workout, what's going to fuel Katie best, is probably not going to fuel you guys best, or I'll use Lorraine as an example, may not fuel Lorraine best. So this is where we take the general information, we apply it, but we figure out what works best for us, because we all have different nutrition needs, and making sure that we're optimizing those individual nutrition needs is really going to be the best to support your training. So maybe Jane does well with having like a heavier meal before practice. And I think it was Christine doesn't do well with a heavier meal before practice. So figuring out what works best for you. And that's why I say the gut training in your preseason, because we don't want to try new things going into season. We want to make sure that whatever we're doing that's working for us, we stick with it throughout season, and then we try new things at the start of a new season. Really great questions. Other questions?
I'm asking for my mom. So she wants to know, so basically the 13 and up, like we're all like starting our periods, not to get too personal. And like as we start it, most of the times you gain weight. And like she wants to know for like short term and like the most efficient way to like lose some like pounds, like should you like cut out, like you shouldn't like totally cut out like one group of like food, but like how should you like maintain it or like at least like lose it without being like unhealthy?
Oh, this is such a good question. I'm really glad you brought this up. And no, it's not TMI. I talk about that on my if you follow my Instagram, I talk about female health a lot, because as athletes, we often put our own health at risk and our long-term health at risk by the way we fuel our bodies or underfuel our bodies. So my focus there would be making sure that you are optimizing all of your meals. When it comes to weight loss, I'm also, I don't know if I mentioned this at the beginning, but my clinical day job is as a pediatric dietitian in a hospital. So I work with peds and I cover their ICU as well. I'm always hesitant to recommend weight loss because your body's still growing. If we notice that we're gaining weight, but we're not having the growth, then maybe we'll take a look, but oftentimes weight gain precedes growth. If we start to cut things out, we stunt the growth. We don't want to stunt the growth, and we also could damage our bone density. I just was looking at a study, and oftentimes, specifically female athletes, we are at higher risk for developing things like osteoporosis, which increases your risk for fractures, bone breaks. We had a lot of shin splint issues on our team. I had shin splints or stress fractures because we're not supporting our body with enough energy. So I kind of gave you a little background on that, but my answer there would be to prioritize on rest days, specifically the veggies. So you want to prioritize the veggies on your rest days. During your practice days, focusing really intently on your pre and post nutrition to make sure that that's optimized, but not cutting anything out. When we cut out, I'll give you a little example. We've got some time, so I'll dive a little bit deeper into this. When we cut out carbohydrates in our body or from our food, we have to find energy elsewhere. And often what happens is our body doesn't directly go to our fat stores. That's a myth, because our bodies are designed to survive. So the last thing we lose is our fat stores. What we go to is breaking down our muscles. And that is what we don't want to have happen, right? We don't want to break down our muscles. When we break down our muscles, well, one, we're losing lean body mass. So we're losing our power, we're losing our strength, we're losing our ability to continue to enhance our skills. So you always want to keep your carbs optimized. One thing I would say is take a look at your drink choices. Are you having mostly water throughout the day? Are you having sugar sweetened beverages throughout the day? Because some of those could add up as well. The only time you really want to focus on those sugar sweetened beverages is going to be around practice time. Okay. But looking at your meal composition, are you focusing on carbs, fats, and proteins at all of your meals? If not, that could be one of the things as well. But weight gain during puberty is very normal, and it's hard to adjust to that. If you're noticing that you're not growing up in height at the same time, then we could talk a little bit more about some nutrition strategies, but I wouldn't say cutting anything out because of the potential long-term effects. I had pre-osteopenia at the age of 18. When I got a DEXA scan done at Ohio State, and they were like, you've got osteopenia in your back and your wrists. And I know it's because I didn't fuel my body well. And so one of the things I always try to emphasize is properly fueling, even if you're noticing those body changes. It's really hard during this age. If you're concerned or you're struggling about it, reach out to a dietitian or reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to take a look at what it is that you're doing and see if there's any ways that we can make it even better. So hopefully that answered the question. Oh, I see Lorraine raised her hand. But any questions on that? Anything else I just said about that?
Oh yeah, no, that was good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Lorraine.
I guess maybe I kind of know, I think I kind of understand maybe what Suhi was trying to ask too, but
Okay.
do you have any recommendations as far as, or insight as to maybe like, are there certain types of like carbohydrates, for example, that are better? Like, do you have any insight on the whole wheat versus non-whole wheat, like stuff like that, like processed versus non-processed carbs? Maybe that's kind of what they were, I could see maybe plays a role as well, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's a really good question. Whole grain, you're always going to want to focus on whole grain because it's higher in fiber. It's going to be higher in, oftentimes it's going to be more fortified in like B vitamins and folic acid. And so you want to have whole grains with your meals throughout the day. The time where, like you said, like processed carbs are more simple, where like white bread, let's talk about white bread because that's often kind of like, oh, don't eat white bread. The only time that white bread can be really beneficial is actually pre-practice because it's lower in fiber, it's not going to upset your stomach, and it's going to give you that energy you need throughout practice. During your meals, though, we want to focus more on nutrient-dense options like whole grains, like brown rice, like whole wheat pasta, quinoa, that sort of thing. That is where you can make the nutrient transition to support more overall health, if that was kind of more of the question, opposed to like the processed foods, the really sugary foods that could add to, you know, excess calories that maybe we're not necessarily needing. That makes sense. Yeah. So hopefully that answered the question. If not, I'm more than happy to expand on that even more. I could talk all day, guys, because I love it.
I have a question. So if you were wanting to eat something like sweet, like say like a piece of pie or something, when would be the best time to eat it? Like before or after practice?
So I would say, well, first after practice, because it's probably it might sit a little bit heavier in your stomach, like with Thanksgiving and everything. But on your off days, the nice thing is that your meals are going to be mostly veggies, right? Because you're focusing on your rest day plate. And so that's where you can add in some more fun foods. The other thing is focusing on a most of the time mentality. So most of the time, we want to pick nutrient-dense options. We want our plate to look like our training plates. We want to go for the whole wheat and the whole grain and maybe the low-fat dairy and things like that. Some of the times, we want to incorporate those fun foods. And the reason I mention that is because if we completely restrict those fun foods, when we do have a chance to have them, we're probably going to overeat them. If you're only waiting to have cookies on Christmas Eve, for example, and you've been staring at them all day or all week or all month because it's December, what are the chances that instead of just having one cookie, you're going to have 10, 12, 13 cookies? So finding ways to incorporate those fun foods decreases the chance of overeating in the future. And so that's why I say most of the time, you want to pick those nutrient-dense options that are going to be fueling your practices. Some of the time, including fun foods into an already balanced plate. That would be my best recommendation for including those fun foods in a healthy way that still nourishes your body and supports your practice goals. Good question.
Wait, I have one more question.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to optimize gut health a lot faster, should I include like glutamine in my drinks or like protein powders?
So glutamine is actually really great for recovery. So it helps keep your muscles recovered. You could always add it after practice, but protein's not going to impact your gut health as much as pre and probiotics are. So yeah, so prebiotics are the fuel for probiotics, and we could chat about that as well. But prebiotics are going to be found in like your fruits and veggies, the fiber. Probiotics are going to be in things like yogurt and any sort of like fermented food, kombucha, if you like to drink kombucha. You need to have both pre and probiotics in order to maximize your gut health. And that would be something I would focus on in the off season. We don't want to do any of that right now going into season because you don't know how your stomach's going to be feeling. And then also focusing on those pre and probiotics in your meals way before practice, like maybe your breakfast and your lunch, but not your snack before practice or even after practice. Good question. Do you take glutamine right now? Yeah. When do you take it? Pre or post?
Well, I take like small amounts once at night and once in the morning.
Great. That's perfect. Yeah.
I have another question meant for Coach Suki. So it's about her health problems. So Coach Suki has high cholesterol, and she says she doesn't have enough. It's not enough of a strong mentality to go work out. So working out is not an option for high cholesterol, but she loves to eat fried food. So she's asking what like foods like I guess spike cholesterol and like how to like maintain it, but she doesn't want to work out.
That's totally fine. You may have gathered my approach is like, you've got to figure out what works best for you, because otherwise it's not going to be sustainable. And that's when we run into problems. So I got you, coach. I got you covered. If you really enjoy fried foods, that's totally fine. What I would recommend is optimizing it with something high fiber. So fun fact, fiber actually attaches to the bad cholesterol, the LDL, and carries it out of the body. And so when you're having high fat meals, making sure you're having fiber as well. The other thing is we think it's just fats that impact our cholesterol. Actually, processed sugars and refined sugars also rise our cholesterol. I have a history of high cholesterol as well, so I battled with this, recently brought it down, but refined sugars like in our baked goods and things like that are actually a bigger contributor to cholesterol than those fats would be. So making sure that if you're having baked goods, and maybe you're not, maybe it is just the fat for you, making sure that you're always
have baked goods a lot.
Yeah. If you follow me on Instagram, I post sweet treats every Sunday because I enjoy them as well. And that's fine. You can have them, just making sure that you're adding in high fiber. I would really emphasize the fiber if you're not going to work out. That's going to help to drive down the cholesterol faster than any other modification. And then with the baked goods, if you can find ones that say trans fat free, we don't want any trans fats in there, because those are the ones that when I like explain trans fats, I kind of use my hands. So like trans fats are the ones that like go like this and they like stick to your arteries. We don't want that. So limiting trans fats, saturated fats in small amounts is totally fine. And then of course, unsaturated fats are the heart protective ones. We do want those. So for coach, fiber. Let's focus on some fiber.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about caffeine for like swimmers?
So caffeine is actually, who am I talking to?
Me.
Oh, found you. Anika?
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So depending on your age, you want to double check with your pediatrician before you start consuming caffeine, because there has been some evidence to support impacting growth. So always make sure you're checking with your pediatrician first. But caffeine is actually the best pre-workout. You don't have to buy any fancy pre-workouts because they're overrated. Just having some caffeine before your workout can really boost your energy. The thing to be careful with, depending on what you're having, coffee, for example, if you're drinking coffee before your workout, coffee is a gut mover, meaning it moves things through your gut pretty fast. And so you could be having some GI problems in the middle of practice. So just being aware of that. But coffee is actually one of the best pre-workouts because it also has polyphenols, which are really good for decreasing inflammation. And I was like, lost my train of thought there. So coffee, I'm a huge coffee fan. You can ask Lorraine. I'm like team coffee. I would suggest having some sort of caffeine before practice as a pre-workout, but being very mindful of the potential GI impacts that it could have.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if you're drinking caffeine and also like BCAA, is that?
Yeah. Branched chain amino acids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is that bad to drink both?
No.
Okay.
No, definitely not. Yeah. They have, well, if you're are you having the BCAAs in a pre-workout, like that also has caffeine in it?
No.
No, then you're totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of good research to support branched chain amino acids for recovery, muscle growth, and caffeine's going to mostly impact energy for like pre-workout.
Okay. And you know those powders that are like vegetables?
Yeah,
Like grind it up?
yeah.
How do you feel about those?
I feel like there can be a place for them.
Okay.
If you struggle with getting vegetables in, it's a great alternative. If you have a pretty well-balanced diet with a lot of fruits and veggies in it, chances are you may just be peeing it out, but
Right.
it's not going to be harmful.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Great questions. I love chatting nutrition if you guys can't tell.
So I had a question. How like frequently is it okay to have, kind of sweeter things, ice cream, cake, stuff like that?
Again, this is going to be my favorite response. It depends. So it depends on how else you're prioritizing your meals. If most of the time you're having sweet things like cookies, cake, ice cream, and you're not having high quality carbs, lean, proteins, veggies, then we're probably missing the boat, because most of the time we want to be prioritizing those nutrient dense foods. But if every once in a while you like to have an ice cream and that doesn't bother your stomach, that's okay. It's going to be different for everyone too. So I would say sit down and see what do your meals look like? What do your snacks look like? And are these sweet treats potentially taking the place of a nutrient dense snack that could be optimizing your nutrition, optimizing your performance? Or is it there and helping? Because like I said, when we completely avoid them, oftentimes we tend to overeat them when we do have them, and then that's just bringing down our performance even more. So I know that's good. That is a typical dietitian answer right there. It depends. Good questions.
Oh, I was going to say, since you were talking about hydration and stuff too, in case there's people that don't know about hydration scales, do you want to touch on like how to know when you're hydrated or how to know when you're dehydrated, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I'm upset at myself that I didn't put a hydration scale in the, I'm sending a lot of handouts. That's actually the other thing I can pull up and show you guys. I'm sending some handouts to Coach as well that she can distribute to you guys, that has all of this information, the pre-post workout hydration. Let me see if I can find it so I can give you an example of what I'm talking about. But one of the best ways to identify how hydrated you are is actually your pee. What does your pee look like? Talk about getting TMI here. And so contrary to common belief, we actually don't want our urine to be clear. That means that we are too hydrated, we have dropped out our electrolytes, and we're not going to be here we go. I knew I found it. We would not have enough electrolytes in our body to keep our body functioning. Woo, there it is. Okay, so here is your hydration scale. This is what you want it to look like when you go pee. This is going to be well hydrated. This is going to be like a light yellow, kind of like lemonade on a hot summer day. We'll never be able to drink lemonade again. Or this is going to be hydrated. These two are fine, a little bit darker or this light pale yellow. And you guys are going to get this handout. So, you'll get this to keep for your own reference. If it starts to get a little bit darker, like we're getting into more like a solid yellow, we need to drink some more. If we're getting into like the dark yellow, more towards like gearing towards orange, we need to drink a lot more. If we're in this like deep yellow, potentially misconstrued as orange, we are SOS in trouble. And the thing to remember here too is that it's not just water. Resolving this is not just water. We want to also include electrolytes here, because if we're just drinking water, but we've already flushed out all of our electrolytes, we're not going to retain any of the water that we're consuming. We're going to keep peeing it out and just perpetuating the problem. So that hydration solution that I showed you guys with the lemon, the honey, and the salt, the lemon and the salt are going to be the electrolytes to help keep your hydration up. So really glad you brought this up. And again, disappointed I didn't have a hydration scale in the presentation, but you guys are going to get this handout so you can take a look at it. And I do have some tips like during practice as well. This is sometimes not possible to have, 4 ounces of fluid every 15 to 20 minutes. So when you do get a chance to have a water break, making sure that you're drinking as much as your stomach can handle before going back out and feeling like you're sloshing when you swim. Yeah, really great. And then you're also going to get one about the macronutrients, the fueling plates, and then female, I'm also going to provide you guys with this one specifically because I think it's really important. Female athlete nutrition, you guys will all get this. Injury prevention and performance enhancement, which speaking about, going through puberty and starting your cycle and everything like that, these are things that you really want to focus on. Calcium and vitamin D, iron, your healthy fats, because we want to prevent the female athlete triad, which we could always talk about that later. But these are some key nutrients specifically for female athletes that we want to put extra focus on. And you guys are going to get this handout as well. Thanks for bringing that up, Lorraine.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah, let me find you. Okay, Erin.
One of them is like, I know it depends on your diet and like your lifestyle, but like when do you know if you're like snacking too much? And then the other one is like, are there like certain things that cause like bloating and like how do you reduce it?
Yeah. Oh, great question. So the snacking one first. Okay, I will answer that as well. So the snacking one first, if you notice that you're constantly snacking and needing to like grab snacks often, you're probably not eating enough at your meals. How our body works is when we eat enough at our meals, it should last us about 4 hours. That's kind of what our glucose curve looks like. We take in food, our blood sugar spikes, we get energy, it starts to drop back down. All right, we need to eat again. So if your meals are not lasting you at least 4 hours, you need to bulk up your meals a little bit to prevent more snacking, okay? As an athlete, 2 to 3 snacks a day is very normal. If you're noticing you need to snack more than that, take a look at your meals. When it comes to bloating, fiber. Fiber is going to cause the bloat, which is why we always say avoid fiber before practices, before competitions. Try and have them at times where like your body can take some time to digest it. Specifically foods like broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. They have this fun thing in them called raffinose. You don't have to remember that, but it's fun to say. Raffinose, which increases the production of gas in our body, which causes the bloating and the discomfort. Now, broccoli and cauliflower and cabbage, they have a lot of benefits. And so if you can handle it, great. We want to make sure we're including those. But if you're noticing it's causing a lot of upset stomach, maybe minimizing those and focusing on other veggies that aren't going to cause as much bloating. Does that answer your questions? Yeah? Okay.
I had a question about sports drinks.
Let me find you. Who am I talking to?
Livonia.
Normally I can see, I'm trying to find the person who turned their mic off.
Can you raise your hand, Livonia?
Oh, there you are.
Yeah. I have a question about sports drinks. So I know a lot of sports drinks contain like a lot of like sugar and stuff. Like, is there any sports drinks you like recommend?
So if you're not going to make your own, what I would recommend is actually standard Powerade and Gatorade or Propel or whatever your favorite one is fine. It can sometimes be a little bit too much though. So cutting it down, doing half sports drink, half water. So you're still getting the benefits of the glucose for energy, the electrolytes in the sports drinks, but not as much sugar, okay? And you can also make a Gatorade last a lot longer that way too. So that would be my suggestion. I'm a really big fan of doing the half and half. It's easy. You're making sure that you're still fueling well, you're hydrating well, but sometimes all that sugar can sit a little bit heavy on your stomach too. Really great question. Other questions?
I have another question.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about like protein powders?
I think, yeah, go ahead.
What's your like view standards on it? Like, do you like it? Do you think it's like a good like thing to have? Sorry,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So no, I know exactly what you're asking. So again, protein powders have their place. If you are optimizing your meals and your snacks, you're probably getting enough protein in, so you don't need a protein powder. The time where protein powders would be beneficial is like if after practice it's really hard for you to eat foods, you could add protein powder to a smoothie to make sure you're getting enough for recovery. But you could also add Greek yogurt or milk, or I've even seen like cottage cheese added to make it like super like thick. I haven't personally tried that yet, but protein powder could be a good way too if you don't like any of those things, if you're not getting enough protein throughout the day. If you can really optimize like a mostly plant-based diet and making sure that you're getting enough protein in, but sometimes it's easier with a plant-based protein powder to make sure you're getting enough protein. So I think it again comes down to taking a look at what you're doing and seeing if you're getting enough protein throughout the day. If not, there could be a place for a protein powder in there. I'm not against protein powders. I think that they have their place.
To build on Natalia's question about proteins, how can you incorporate protein powders? Is it good in order to like build muscles?
Yeah.
Or is it like normal proteins better? Like, is there like a thing where like protein powder wouldn't be like the ideal things to build muscle, or is it like?
No, the thing with building muscle is you want to make sure you're having a complete protein because you need all of the essential amino acids to build muscle. So if you're eating something like a meat product, for example, fish, pork, beef, chicken, they're going to have eggs. They're going to have all of the essential amino acids necessary to build muscle. The nice thing with protein powders is they often already have the essential amino acids in them. If you're mostly plant-based, you have to do a little bit more planning and making sure that you're pairing foods together. The most classic combination is going to be rice and beans. You're going to pair rice and beans together to get all of the essential amino acids so you can still build muscle. So it's not that one is superior or less than the other. It's making sure you're having all essential amino acids, whether that's through a protein powder, through a regular meat product, or through complementary proteins in a plant-based style.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I have a question about eating like spicy food.
Yeah.
Just like when is a good time to eat it?
So, couple of things here with spicy foods. I wouldn't recommend them before practice, especially as synchronized swimmers, right? Because we're going upside down, and if we did not digest it, that's going to come up and could be very uncomfortable in our esophagus. I also wouldn't recommend it before you go to bed. And the reason is if you eat it before you go to bed, if you're doing it, you're okay. I saw you go, oh, no, you're okay. The thing about that though is when we go to sleep and we lay down, right, we're on our side, our stomach now comes up to be in the same line as our esophagus, and it could run up our esophagus again too. If you don't have any problems and it feels fine, you're good to go. I personally have some bad acid reflux, and so I don't do spicy before bed, before workouts. If I'm going to do spicy, it's earlier in the day. But again, it depends on you. If you can tolerate it before you go to bed, you're good. I just wouldn't recommend it before practice. Good question, Lindsay.
I have a question.
Got it. Let me find you. Raise your hand who just talked. Oh, there you are. All right.
To replace like drinks like Gatorade, is coconut water okay because it gives you a lot of electrolytes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So coconut water is going to give you a lot of electrolytes. It depends on the brand to see if it's going to give you enough energy though. Remember, we also want to have some sugar in it to keep your glycogen, or the fancy word for energy in your muscles, up. And so you want to take a look and see, like, does it have any carbs in it? If it doesn't, maybe you want to add some carbs. If it does, it's probably a good alternative. And different brands are going to be different. Is it Maya? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Yeah. Good question, Miss Maya. Do you like coconut water?
Mhm.
Yeah. That would be a great option, just making sure it's got enough carbs in it to keep your muscle energy up. Good question. You guys are awesome with the questions.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have like some knee problems, like inflammation. What do you think some like good like foods to eat for like some inflammation?
Really good question. So actually, this is very specific, but tart cherry juice specifically has been shown to reduce inflammation in athletes when they consume it post practice. So even if it's like 2 to 4 ounces of tart cherry juice, it can reduce inflammation. The other thing is beets. Do you like beets?
Yeah.
Yeah. Adding beets to your salad, or throwing them in, I only eat beets in my salad, or if you pickle them, or however you do it. The nice thing about beets is they have this thing in them called nitric oxide. And we don't need to go into the details of that. But what that does is that helps your body get blood and nutrients to those areas to help reduce the inflammation for recovery. Same thing with like pomegranate juice. You guys seen those commercials with the palm juice where the guy comes through and he's like fighting? He's breaking down all of the things that cause inflammation in the body because it has that nitric oxide. It has antioxidants in it too, which helps to reduce inflammation. Anything with nitric oxide or antioxidants in it, so like blueberries, pomegranates, any sort of berry actually, is going to be really helpful to reducing inflammation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question as well.
Yeah.
If you get like acid reflux and like heartburn, like other than spicy foods, like what else causes it?
So the unfortunate answer is caffeine, chocolate, citrus, like oranges. I lost you. Where, raise your hand who I'm talking to. Ah, there you are, Erin. Okay. You muted yourself and I couldn't find you. I find you guys when you're unmuted. So chocolate, caffeine, citrus foods like oranges, lemons, grapefruit, anything like that. Mint, like peppermint, gum, winter mint, spearmint. And the reason is what happens with acid reflux, and this can be problematic in swimmers specifically because we're in water, we're not in gravity, we're upside down, is what those foods do is they open the connection between your stomach and your esophagus. So this is your stomach and your esophagus. It loosens it and it opens it. And what happens is all of your stomach contents, whatever you have in your stomach, comes up into your esophagus, and that's what causes the acid reflux. So I would definitely say limiting those things if it's bothering you, or having them mostly on days off.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I personally feel that struggle.
Okay, I have a question. I don't know if this is weird, but like, so lately, especially because of Thanksgiving break, like I've been sleeping in. So like I've unintentionally been eating like less, but gaining weight at the same time. So I'm wondering like why, like what causes that?
Yeah, so a lot of things can cause that. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
But I'm turning 15 at the end of this month.
Turning 15. Okay, prime time for your body to kind of go from kid to adult. So there's that. That's probably why you're sleeping in a lot more too. But the other thing that could be happening is because you're sleeping for longer, you're not fueling your body as often throughout the day. And so your meals might be getting a little bit bigger. So even if you're eating less meals throughout the day, the actual meal is getting bigger. And something that we do want to focus on is spacing out our meals. Why? Because that maximizes our blood sugar regulation, which helps with metabolism. Okay. So that would be one thing. The other thing would be, when you wake up, how soon is it before you have a meal?
And then maybe 2 hours.
Okay, can you have something sooner? And the reason I say that is because even though we're sleeping and our body is resting, we're still technically fasting. And anytime we don't provide our body with energy for an extended period of time, it starts to think that we're not going to get energy, and it starts to get nervous. All of these things happen with hormones, and you've already got hormones going all over the place right now. So anytime we don't focus on optimizing those, it's going to be a little bit of a struggle. So we want to have energy or eat meals consistently throughout the day to keep our metabolism up, because when we cut that down, our metabolism intentionally slows down as a survival mechanism. Because if you're not eating enough throughout the day, your body might think like, I'm never going to get food again. SOS, I need to have something. And we kind of think that that's reverse logic, right? You're like, well, I'm gaining weight, I should be eating less often, right? No, actually, for metabolic health, you want to make sure you're eating more frequently. Okay. Yeah. Like I was saying I forget who was asking about the snacks. If you're snacking a lot, you still want to make sure, was it Aaron? I think it was Aaron. You want to make sure that your meals are lasting you about 3 to 4 hours, but we don't really want to go much more than that without having something. Good question. Hopefully that
I have another question. Like sometimes during the break, I wake up around the afternoon, and what do you think it's good to eat a huge meal after like lunch? Sometimes I eat like huge like lunches. Do you think it's good to eat like a big lunch or like a smaller lunch?
I would go with a medium lunch, because you want to make sure that your lunch is carbs, fats, and proteins, but you want to make sure that it's big enough to keep you fueled for 3 to 4 hours. If you go too small, you're going to be snacking more. But if you go too big, you're not going to be hungry for your meals throughout the day, and then we run into that blood sugar issue. So I would say medium for you.
Right, I have a question.
Yeah.
So in 12 and under, I never got acne, but as soon as I got into 13, 15, stuff just started happening on my face. So
Yep.
what foods can I eat to stop that stuff from coming?
So there's a lot of mixed research. Let me preface this with there's nothing clear cut here, okay? But there is some connection between dairy products and acne. We have kind of seen that. So potentially seeing how you're doing with dairy products. I caution you there because you want to make sure you're getting enough calcium for your bones, but prioritizing things like whole grains, lean proteins, and healthy fats. The reason I say healthy fats is because healthy fats help your skin to be healthy. That was redundant, but they do. And the reason people have like very beautiful skin is because they're having adequate hydration and adequate fat. The other thing is it's probably not everything you're eating. There's probably a lot of other things going on too, like hormones, which healthy fats will help with hormone regulation as well, but making sure that you're taking a look at other factors that could be impacting that. Acne in your teens is very normal. Good question.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So can constipation come from eating less or not eating as much, and or is it just GI problems?
No, constipation can definitely come from not eating enough or underfueling. Actually, that's one of the biggest signs of underfueling is constipation and your bowels not moving properly. The other thing is hydration, making sure you're hydrating enough, because the way our body actually moves the food out is by pulling in water into our intestines to move it out. So if you're not having enough hydration, nothing's going to move out. But again, focusing on carbs, fats, and proteins and fiber can be helpful. Be careful with the fiber, because depending on if you have soluble or insoluble fiber, it could either constipate you more or have you go a little bit more. So I would focus mostly on the hydration piece and making sure your meals are very well balanced. Great question.
It seems like time's almost done.
Oh, So many good questions.
Right, it's such a very nice conversation, and then it's so nice, educational today. I feel like super smart now.
Yay! I'm so glad.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys so much. If you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. I will send Coach all of the handouts and the slide set so you guys can refer back to it. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions that I wasn't able to on here. Thanks for having me.